Governor General Mary Simon, thanks so much for being with us this week on InFocus. Today we're celebrating Indigenous First, and you are, of course, the first Indigenous person, the first Indigenous woman to hold the title of Governor General. What significance do you think that holds for Indigenous women and for Indigenous peoples?
I think in terms of the significance, it is significant because we've been working at the national and international level to be partners and to work together with other Canadians in the process of our own future. So the fact that I am an Indigenous person and the first Indigenous Governor General, many people have told me over the months and year that to them it's a really great thing that has happened in our country, that it signifies that Indigenous issues are critically important to the country and that we can work in partnership. So I have received a lot of positive feedback on the fact that I'm now the Governor General.
Are there moments in your life that stick out to you that led you to this appointment?
I suppose there is. There's many things that happened in my 75 years, and it's one of these things that only come over time, and there are significant milestones that I've had in my own work, and they relate to both working at the regional level and then being a board member on many regional organizations, and also at the national level being the national leader, also being the president of the Inuit Circumpolar Council, which is the international organization that represents the Inuit of Alaska, Canada, Greenland, and Russia. And then when I was ambassador for circumpolar affairs at Foreign Affairs here in Ottawa, I was the lead negotiator for the establishment of the Arctic Council that includes 8 Arctic countries, and so on. And then I was ambassador to Denmark. So there's been many things that have happened in my lifetime that have had a significant impact on me personally. And when I read my biography, it illustrates that I have been involved in many different aspects of not just Northern Inuit issues, but also internationally as well as nationally with other Indigenous leaders, especially during the constitutional negotiations that led up to the recognition of Indigenous Aboriginal rights in the Canadian Constitution.
As you pointed out there, you were also the first ambassador for circumpolar affairs for a decade. How do you think that work influenced your work as Governor General?
I learned a lot of things that I held during my term as ambassador, and a lot of that has to do with building bridges, and I've done that throughout my life, building bridges between people, Indigenous people and non-Indigenous people. And when I was in Denmark, as well as circumpolar ambassador here in Ottawa, there are a lot of activities that require diplomacy, and I learned a lot of things about diplomacy that I use here in my job as Governor General. So these types of things that you've learned have a way of coming back to help you develop the kind of interchange and interactions that you have with other peoples across the country. My role right now is representing the King of England, but also I'm responsible here in Canada for the work on reconciliation on behalf of Rideau Hall. So these are really important aspects of the role of a Governor General, aside from the usual, responsibilities, constitutional responsibilities that I carry as the Governor General. There are a lot of other areas that I work on, and one of those areas is definitely bringing people together, and also to talk about who we are, and to develop and create spaces where people will live side by side with respect, with dignity, expressing their culture and their language, with respect. So I think this is a long-term project, no doubt, but I'm certainly taking it seriously during my term as Governor General.
When the call came for the appointment to Governor General, was that still a shock for you? Was it something that you had to weigh, or was that an automatic yes right away?
In terms of working, it was pretty automatic, but in terms of my personal life, you know, we had required some discussion with family members. I have 12 grandchildren that had a say in it, and my children. So it was a discussion in the family. But in terms of the work, I saw this position as a way of continuing the work that I had done through other organizations at a non-governmental level, especially. Creating new opportunities for people, working at the United Nations on the establishment of the UN Indigenous Peoples Declaration. So all these areas I felt could really contribute to the work that the Governor General does in Canada. So it was a surprise, but it was a very positive surprise, and I didn't have to think too long to make a decision. So my husband was always very supportive as well, so it made the job of accepting easier.
Yeah, a lot of time to be away from the grandkids. You come from a family of trailblazers. What influence did your parents and your upbringing have on your life and career?
My upbringing is very significant to me, and it plays a role in my life every day, because I come from a family, like my mother was an Inuk, and my grandmother was also an Inuk, and they only spoke Inuktitut. And my father was from Manitoba, a non-Indigenous person, but he went to the Arctic when he was 18 and learned the language very quickly. So when he met my mother, he could already speak the language, so there were really no barriers to the love that they found for each other. And they played a very significant role, because on a day-to-day level, we learnt the Inuit culture and language from my mother and grandmother, and my father taught us to survive out on the land as he was taught by Inuit when he first went to the Arctic in the cold climate of winter. So these are things that have played a significant role in my life, and it's like living in two worlds. When I'm up north back home, I go into my Inuit culture without thinking about it. And when I live in Ottawa at Rideau Hall, I can also live the way of life that they have in the southern part of the country. So I'm very lucky, I'm very fortunate to have been brought up this way, and it has really helped me in my work.
During your time as Governor General, there's been a lot of historic firsts as well, from the Pope's apology to the meeting of the new monarch. What are some of the things that stand out for you so far in the role?
Well, these are all very significant events that I've been involved in, unexpected ones in some ways, and they have really we've spent a lot of time dealing with these significant events, and I think that the fact that I'm fortunate enough to be involved at this level allows me to learn more and more about the international community, and also to bring that back into my work to see how we can improve different things in our own land, in our own homeland. As well, we can also share with other countries what we have done in our country. For instance, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and its report. There are countries now that are doing similar types of activities and working on renewed relationship with other Indigenous peoples that live in those countries. So it's really something that is it really does tie into the discussion on the rule-based world order that we all depend on every day, and we contribute to that as Indigenous people to a great deal.
We hear a lot about some of the challenges that Indigenous peoples face in public life, public service as a politician, especially Indigenous women. But many people look to your appointment as an inspiration. What advice would you have for those who do want to enter the public service?
Well, I think any job in life can be challenging. And when I was beginning my work back in the early 70s, I was often the only woman in board meetings. And you look to see what role women play today, and it's come a long way. But I think that we still have to work on this issue. I think gender equality continues to be an issue, and I often find that when you make decisions for our families and our communities and our country, the best decisions that come out of this is when men and women work together and find the best solution to problems or challenges that we face. So I'm a big supporter of engagement of both men and women in the workplace, and we need to do more. Inspirational, I think as women, we find what we enjoy doing in life, whether it's a job or at home with children, and that's a decision each and every one of us have to make. But when we face challenges, what's important is to believe in yourself and to also think about what your priorities are and the decisions you make for you and your family, and carry that throughout your work, and try and resolve the challenges and not walk away from them. I know it's difficult sometimes not to walk away, but there have been times in my life, in my career, where I had those types of challenges, and I almost walked away a few times, but I didn't. And in the end, you earn the respect that you deserve. So challenging times, just think of yourself as an individual, believing in yourself, and keep going.
Wise words there indeed. Some of the big events that have happened that you touched on, there was really no way to predict some of those were going to happen, but are there things on the horizon that you're looking forward to? Well,
as we know, we have a new king, and I'm the representative in Canada, and there will be a big event in London in May. So I will be attending the coronation of King Charles, and that to me is exciting, and it's an event that doesn't happen very often. I think the last time it happened was when the late Queen Elizabeth had her coronation. That's over 70 years ago, so it's been a long time. So this is an event that doesn't happen very often. So I think it's really important to continue that relationship. And especially when I think of King Charles, and he was here before he was king last May, he was very interested in dialogue with the Indigenous leaders, and he continues to have a high interest in that dialogue. So hopefully we can continue the Inuit to Crown or Indigenous to Crown relationship building. I'm hoping that will happen in the coming months and years.
Governor General Mary Simon, inspiration for sure. Appreciate you taking some time for us here.
Well, thank you very much for having me.